Chances are, if you grew up with a single mother, no father figure in the household, your relationship history has been terrible. And I'm speaking from anecdotal experience here. When I was 19, I finally stepped into therapy because I'm like, you know what? There is something wrong with me. I keep blowing up every relationship I'm in, and I don't know why. I have no grasp on my emotions, and I don't know why. And what I realized going through therapy was the impact of not having a father figure growing up is severe on men because when you only have a single mother growing up, you start to pick up bad characteristics. Like you become passive aggressive, you become more aggressive in general. Your academics will probably slip a little bit. Your motivation and discipline will probably slip a little bit. And it's it's hard to say these things because it almost sounds like, oh, like you're blaming your mother for how you turned out and all this, but it's like men aren't supposed to be raised by only women. And there's a reason why guys who didn't grow up with a father figure and who were raised by a single mother and went through a school system that was predominantly women grow up to be a bit softer, end up being more aggressive and passive aggressive. It's because we didn't learn the emotional resilience to work through our own emotions in a productive way. Instead, what we learned by proxy from our mothers or from other ladies is like, oh, if you're feeling some type of way, like you can be a bit passive aggressive about it. You can gossip a little bit. You can get a little bit riled up in all this. And it's just interesting to think about how much different things could have been if, like, for me example, if I had like an actual father figure growing up for like the first 18, 19 years of my life, like would I have always been so angry without knowing why? Would I have low key hated myself for as long as I did? I'm like, what's wrong with me mentally? Like, why don't I understand myself? Why can't I have a functional relationship? Why am I codependent? Like, why do I not know how to be alone? A lot of this comes from the lack of having a father figure that teaches you how to be secure in yourself, how to love yourself without the need for a woman. And that's what you don't learn when you're raised by a single mother. You don't learn how to operate without the presence of women. And it makes you weak. Like I realized at 19 I was like I'm a bit of a wimp. Like sure I go to the gym, but I don't understand myself. I don't know how to work through my emotions. I don't know how to open up to people. I don't know how to talk about what's going on in my brain. And like how was I supposed to learn that to a degree? And I feel like talking about this on the internet sort of helps me vent a little bit, but also helps me rationalize things in my brain because it's very easy, especially nowadays, to blame how you turned out on your upbringing. But I feel like it gets to a point, especially when you go to therapy, that you realize as much as your upbringing has an effect on who you become, at a certain point, it becomes your responsibility to fix the things or work on the things within yourself that you deem workable, because I learned in therapy like it's not really the best to say, oh, you're broken and you need to fix yourself, because then you're viewing yourself as like some workshop item, like almost like you're disposable to a degree. But I think a lot of men could benefit from therapy because it gets this bad rap, but genuinely learning why you think the way you do, how you think the way you do, and how to overcome the struggles that have been plaguing you for probably a lifetime. I feel like it's revolutionary because you become a lot calmer. Like I used to be a very not only passive aggressive, but just like very like antsy individual. And I didn't know why, like sure ADHD and all that stuff, right? But it's just like I was irrationally angry my entire life. And I didn't understand why. Like I was like, where's all this hatred coming from? Like I was angry almost every day of my life. And I just didn't know really how to express it or where to put the energy towards, which is probably why I geared towards doing sports, which is why I probably had problems with authority growing up. Like I hated authority. Even till this day, I don't necessarily hate authority, but it was just that notion that, oh, because they're adults, they know best. I think subconsciously in my brain I knew, well, if adults knew best, like I wouldn't have turned out so messed up mentally if adults were so productive and they actually knew what they were doing. Maybe I wouldn't be so messed up in the head. Like, and I get that's not that wasn't the healthiest way of, I guess, viewing things growing up, but I had no other way of thinking about things. But now that I'm 23, I've been through therapy, and I plan on going back just to get more of a, I guess, sense of myself as I'm getting older. Now that I can rationalize things a bit more, there's certain things I feel like if you go through therapy the first time at a younger age, like when I went at 19, there's certain things you just won't open up about because you don't quite know how to tell it to another person because you've never told it to anyone or you've never even tried to rationalize it for yourself. But I found that at 23, there are certain things that I wish I had talked about in therapy the first time around because now I actually have a grasp on it and I actually know how to articulate it to someone else. But there's almost still that fear of like, okay, how do you work through that? Because I don't want to say I hold any animosity, but it's like when you never had a father figure around, like I've never met my dad, there's almost like a bit of hatred in the sense of I was fucked up for a part of my life because you walked out. But then you misplaced that hatred and rage at the one parent that was there. But then at the same time, the one parent that was there wasn't emotionally there. But then it's like, can you blame the parent for doing the best they could? Because you got to give everyone grace. You know, it's everyone's first time walking through life. But there's so many complicated emotions there in the sense of you one parent walked out, but the one parent you had there was physically there but not emotionally there, so you never learned how to grasp your emotions growing up, so you just turned out to be like a self-destructive asshole for a period of your life. For like 19 years of my life I was just self-destructive. The things I was doing was ruining myself and I was hurting other people, and I wasn't doing it on purpose. It was just it was literally just a bad habit that I did not know how to break and I didn't know why I was doing it. It was just happening. And I'm just like, all right, something's got to give because I can't run into my adult life like this. Like that's no productive way for anyone to live because I'm not only hurting myself, I'm hurting other people. Like, have I sent other people to therapy simply because I was a prick who didn't know how to manage his own emotions? Just a lot of things running through the brain as I get older, and I'm like, oh, I see why they say you should probably have a two-parent household because women need a mom and a dad, men need a mother and a father. Because I'm the living proof, and any man who's grown up with just a single mother can attest that you probably would have benefited a bit more. You would have probably had a bit more growth if you had a solid male figure in your life because men and women operate differently. We think differently. We process emotions and just thought patterns differently. So when you have a woman teaching you everything as a man and the school system is predominantly women, you're learning very feminine traits and those don't foster well in a teenage boy's mind. You become passive aggressive. You become hyper aggressive in general. And I feel like for me, it was good that I had an outlet like sports to let my aggression and competitiveness out. But then I would find I would be passive aggressive when it would come to relationships. Like you'd say things to provoke a response, or you just wouldn't care about someone else's emotional state because your needs are what matters more in that moment. And it's like just very feminine behaviors that I didn't understand why I was doing. I was just doing them growing up. And now having context, having gone to therapy and planning on going back to therapy, I guess I can't say, oh, I wish I had a father. But it's almost like I wonder what life would have been like to have a male figure in my life. But at the same time, everything in life happens for a reason, right? And you can't dwell on the past too much because like I said earlier, it gets to a point to where Your healing is your responsibility. You can't blame the past for how you turned out for the rest of your life. Like it gets to a point to where if you keep making bad decisions, you're still self-sabotaging as an adult. It's on you at a point. So I don't, I really don't know who this is gonna find. I'm really just, I guess, yapping, kind of venting to the camera, I guess. But I know there's someone in the world right now who can relate to this, especially like in the Black community. I feel like this is a prevalent issue that's not. It's not fun to deal with, especially when you're a teenager or you're a child and you don't understand what's wrong, but subconsciously you know something's wrong. And then you get older and you're like, oh, that's what it is. But oh, I'm 19 or I'm 22, I'm 23, and you haven't had a father figure for your whole life. So it's like, what does it really do for you then? You're kind of pretty much just teaching yourself what it's like to be a man. And that's if you like go to therapy, you actually start to work through things. And then I guess maybe you find a solid father figure like later in life or like in another adult or trusted adult, something like that. But that's just me spitballing at the camera. I guarantee there's someone who's gonna watch this and like, oh, you just described my entire life. And to that person, I say, go to therapy if you haven't already. Not like a digging way, but I promise you it'll help. And if you don't want to, at least journal or yeah, at least try. I'm trying to give solid advice here, but it's like, damn, I know how rough it is. Like I genuinely know that you might not want to go to therapy because you're like, oh, is it gonna actually benefit for me? And you might look at journaling like, what's writing on that piece of paper gonna do for me, managing my emotions? But those are the two avenues for me that actually help me start to understand myself. Writing my thoughts down and actually analyzing why am I having these certain thinking patterns? Why do I feel how I do? Or actually talking to a professional to figure out how did I even get here? And to realize that you have to get to a point to where you're not blaming anyone, but you understand that you're responsible for your own healing. You're responsible for your growth moving forward because I mean, that's the only way to improve as a human being. You can't go blaming everyone for how you turned out for the rest of your life because then you get absolutely nowhere. You stagnate and then you're just cynical. You hate everyone and you can't have a productive relationship. You can't have productive friendships. It's just a cascading effect that no one really wants to deal with. So it gets to a point to where you have to help yourself because as sad as it is to say, no one's coming to save you but you. And once you realize that, I mean, it's off to the races, right?